a taped oral history interview with Queen Mother Moore, a leader of 3 generations of black political activity and cultural reawakening in the United States. And I suppose we should perhaps start from the early days in the South, when things were happening which are rarely recorded for the present generation to know about.
Good morning. I'm happy to be here again in Fordham University, where I've had the privilege of giving a lecture some time ago. About New Orleans, I would say there never was a time that we were not in struggle. I don't think that anybody needed to come on the scene to lead us either. Innately, in our very bones, we wanted to be free, always. My father was a sheriff, a deputy sheriff in Louisiana. And my little brother, who was playing with a little rich white boy next door, the little boy began to cry, went to his mother, and when the father came home, he called my brother out and horsewhipped him. My brother's around 10 years old. And when my father came home and heard about it, he called that white man out and horsewhipped him. Now that's my background. Those were days before Jim Crow had actually been established firmly in the South. It was right after Reconstruction, and I can still remember my mother going to French opera in New Orleans. I can remember my father and mother dancing the chatters, and my father belonged to the French Society, and generally the people were getting along fairly well. Then, of course, came a reversal, a complete reversal on all the progress that had been made with the establishment of the Black Code Laws. The Black Code Laws had many restrictions against us. The Black Code Laws established the Jim Crow. It established the fact that our people couldn't vote, that unless you had $300 worth of property, you couldn't vote, or if your grandfather had voted, then you could vote. And it established the white primaries. Just in case you could meet your poll tax and all other qualifications, there was the white primary that you certainly could not do anything about, because there was a blanket law saying that no black could vote in the white primaries. At that time, we had black leaders of every sort, political leaders, rose in the South. We had black senators and congressmen in the U.S. Congress, the House of Representatives. We had black lieutenant governor who had become governor of Louisiana. We had, in my lifetime, black custom inspector and black chief of police and black builders, construction builders of great buildings there, architects and engineers. And I can remember those. So that there was a great change, and the people began to fight back as best they could, the entrenchment against us. So by the time that Marcus Garvey came on the scene in Louisiana, we were already in struggle. And therefore, it was not accidental that we joined in large numbers the UNIE.
Did black people lose some of the land that they had acquired in the course of the Jim Crow period?
Oh my goodness, yes, land. People would run off their land by the Klan, and the white people riding in their homes on the horseback, whipping the people, running them out of town, and tarring and feathering people, and there was great repression as far as the land question was concerned. We used to think it was only jealousy, but it was much deeper than that. It used to be jealous.
Because Abner Berry told me that in the 30s, when they were developing the line on self-determination, the black farmers in the South understood it as getting back the land that had been taken away from them.
That's right. You know, we had been promised land during the Civil War. There was talk about 40 acres and a mule, and also General Sherman had issued a field order, number 15, saying that we were given land 30 miles from the shores of the Atlantic Ocean inward, all along the coast of the Carolinas. So we were to have 30-mile land. So there was a great feeling of deception on the part of the government against us, and that we had been cheated, you see. Land was taken to. Everybody's land was taken.
And when the Garvey movement first came to Louisiana, was this through representatives or through Marcus Garvey himself?
Well, Garvey himself came. I don't recall if he had been invited. I'm sure he was by our enlightened people.
Mm-hmm.
But when he did come, the police wouldn't allow him to speak to us. And we heard about it. And we went there, as a matter of fact, and Garvey didn't appear. And we heard that the police had prevented him from coming, and everybody vowed to go back the next night with a guarantee that we were going to hear Garvey. So we went, all of us went well armed. Everybody had guns and big bags of ammunition. The police filed in the hall, and they stood up all along the side of the benches. Man to man, they stood on both sides of the aisle, and of course across the front of the platform. And the outer aisles, they stood. So when Garvey came in, everybody stood up and applauded. And Garvey said, "My friends, I wish to apologize to you for not speaking to you last night. But the mayor of the town, the mayor of New Orleans, permitted himself to be used by the police, the chief, to prevent my speaking to you." And when he said that, the police jumped up on the platform and said, "I'll run you in." And when he did that, all of us stood on the benches. There were benches then, not like you have nowadays. You all wouldn't know what to do, but you're so used to psychedelic chairs. We stood up on the benches, and everybody's gun came out. And with our hand up in the air, a gun pointed. Blue steel Smith & Wessons, 44s, 38s, all kinds of guns.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody had a bag of ammunition. We said, "Speak, Garvey, speak." And Garvey said, and as I was saying, he went and repeated himself. So the police filed out of Longshoreman Hall in New Orleans.
This was the Longshoreman Hall.
The Longshoreman Hall. Now, a lot of people don't know this, but in 1872, black men organized the first longshoreman organization.
Huh? This was a
And
union.
yes, and controlled the entire waterfront. Nothing came in and out of the port of Louisiana without going, including the customs director, commissioner. But what they came through blacks. And of course, you know, they used to put on the White House, on the jailhouse, the names of the whites who would support blacks. And there was a real campaign like the MacArthur area.
You mean it was that? You mean if they saw a white person who was working with the black community, they would ostracize them?
Oh yeah. Oh, they would more than they tore and feathered. And also they put their names up, and they couldn't get jobs and so on. Those who voted for blacks, you see. So we didn't have that prejudice. They made the prejudice. You see, the white people made the prejudice. That certain little element of whites made the prejudice. And I can remember where this was done.
How did Jim Crow affect the education that black people were receiving in Louisiana? Was there a decline in the quality of the schools and the education during that time?
Well, we had, our schools went to 8th grade. And those who went to 8th grade became teachers.
Mm-hmm.
My cousins were teachers. They went to 8th grade. I went to 4th grade. So I had a reasonable amount of education there.
You only went to 4th grade?
Half the way.
Wow.
And my grandmother used to always say, "Gal, you had too much learning to be cutting up like you doing." Once you had that kind of learning, you was expected to have a certain decorum. And so I was always conscious of that much learning until I grew up to the point where I realized that I was ignorant and had to do something to cure my ignorance. So I had to study. But more of our people went to the Catholic schools than to the public schools. And there the nuns were very diligent in teaching us our ABCs, how to read, how to arithmetic, and so on. They taught us very thoroughly, the nuns, very conscientious. And so that those of us who were fortunate enough to go to Catholic school at that period, since then, the Catholic schools certainly does not hold my respect. I'll give you one little example. In New Orleans, if you go and look at the record for 1955, look in the newspapers in the advertising section, you will find that they had two schools, the Catholics did, two universities in New Orleans. And the white university, they had alphabetized the courses that they were giving in both universities. But just one little example, and I could quote more. But under M, they got the M. In the black university, they had music. In the white university, same Catholic university, they had marketing and management. You see? Mm-hmm. So this is an indication, I think this tells the whole story of the difference. Mm-hmm. And they always had white nuns over our black kids in Xavier University. Now, in St. Catherine's School, we had black nuns under the school in which I attended. And the reason we had St. Catherine's School was because in the Catholic Church, and I can recall that just as good, my mother and I went to church that Sunday, and I was only 5 when she died. And now I'm 75, so 70 years ago, and it's like it happened yesterday. I can recall when Mama went to church, there was a screen in the church saying colored sit here, for colored only. And we had a pew in the church. But that was disregarded. It was disregarded. And I can remember my mother sitting back in the back seat weeping in the church. And incidentally, this is interesting about her weeping, because she had taught me it was unladylike to show your feelings. And even when I was swinging once, somebody was pushing me against, my father had fine horses and stable, beautiful stable. And in the stable there was a nail sticking out. And somebody had made me a swing, and pushing me sideways, a nail went in my leg. And all the way to the hospital, she was telling me not to show my feelings. And I didn't cry with that big nail, big rusty nail that stuck in my leg. A little bitter thing.
Were your parents looked upon as leaders in the community, people who were looked up to?
Oh, my people had enjoyed great respect. My father was a man amongst men. Beautiful, powerful man. Beautiful man. Do you know I haven't seen anybody as beautiful as my father in my lifetime? He was so beautiful. And my mother was very dark, and my father was the son of a white man who had raped his mother. So a thing that I always feel terror about, the rape of the black women. Almost every one of us was raped. Our women and young girls. And so this complexion that I want reparations for it, because I had a right not to have been tampered with. My complexion has been passed on to my son, and he's passed his complexion on to his children, which is injury beyond any there's no compensation in the world can repay you for changing your complexion. Having your complexion forced on you, you see. Also our names. We demanded reparations for the white man imposing his names on us, taking our names completely away from us, then forcing us to nurse his babies. We nursed his babies from our breasts. All of this, the injury has been horrendous to us. Then after, of course, doing that, during the time that I mentioned that our people enjoyed a little freedom in this country, after the Emancipation Proclamation, where the Union Army deserted our people, and the North withdrew its forces from the South, leaving us to the mercy of the people under whom we had been slaves. And so after that, not only had they imposed citizenship on us, this is something very serious. They imposed citizenship upon us instead of allowing us to, giving us restitution, because after all they had changed us in the course of slavery from an African to a Negro. Then, of course, they imposed their citizenship. And after they imposed citizenship upon us, which some people might think was magnanimous, after all he's giving you citizenship, which actually was a violation of our human rights, because we should have had a plebiscite. You see, there should have been restitution, reparations, a plebiscite for us. There was none of that. So that the citizenship is illegal. But then after they did that, what did they do? They enacted their black code laws to deny us the very benefits of the citizenship that they had imposed on us. You see? So here we were citizens without, we had the burden of citizenship without any of the benefits. That happened in our case. That's why we have to go way back to our enslavement in order to get a correct position from our people. And anybody who glosses over that whole slavery period will never get a correct, never have a correct analysis of our status in the United States. But in spite of all of that, our contributions have been something else to this country.
Do you think that the strength and dignity of your father and mother as an example was largely responsible for your personal ability to be in the struggle for, over so many years?
Oh, there's no question about it. My background, my blood, oh yes. I was born with pride. My people had pride in themselves. And I remember so many times rich white men would come to our door to see Papa and say, tell him Papa's eating, or see him directly. See him directly. Papa's eating, have a seat, and so on. Papa never jumped up and ran to no white man.
What did he tell you to instill pride at, the children? Did he talk to to all of you?
Well, I think it was our lifestyle, for one thing. Our very lifestyle. I remember we lived around 5 or 6 big mills, and the boss of one of the mills, we called it insulted me. Said, he wanted me for his girl. I was a little girl, and my brother broke his jaw. So that was our tradition. I remember when they first put the screens in the streetcars, my brother threw the screen out the window. Yeah, so I came from a tradition of fighters. A lot of people think we were survived. We were not.
Right. And your father was able, and your brother were able to maintain this standard of dignity and self-respect and still survive?
Of course, they survived. Oh yes, they survived. They had businesses and everything. And in those days, after they put the Jim Crow signs up, very few of our people rode the streetcars. They mostly rode their horse and buggies, so on, or wagons. A lot of our people had wagons. They rode that into town, but only the very young rode the streetcars. Our people were too indignant to ride the streetcars.
When you first heard Marcus Garvey, what was the main message that came across?
Well, at the time I heard Garvey, I was, of course, in business and doing very well. But I wanted to be free. I wanted free. I never was satisfied to be enslaved. Garvey brought us a message the likes of which I'd never heard. He told us about the splendors of our ancient history, culture, of the great kings and queens that we had been, of the riches of Africa, and of the kind of people that we were. And we were just inspired to no end. All of us wanted to be black then, just like then we recognized what had happened to us. Prior to that time, I used to feel that, to be white would be wonderful. Not poor white. I want that very clear. I want to be rich, rich white. Because many of you don't know it, but in the South, we look down upon poor white people. We were taught to look down upon them. And nobody would allow a poor white man to come in their home. He had to come around the back door. And they used to come to get food and everything, beg us for bread, and so on, but they never was allowed in the house. Poor white man used to say is out there, and so on. So there's a great contradiction, really, of the way the ruling oligarchy has set up this country. And in the meantime, he was slipping and dodging with as many black women as he could. And that went for all of them. I mean the rich. No black woman went with a poor white man. But all the rich imposed themselves on a black woman. There was even, I mean, this is after slavery time now, where they threatened the husbands, ran them out of town when they wanted a black woman, ran the husbands out of town, lynched them for black women. Most all that lynching was for black women, because no black man is raping no white woman. They haven't had nothing like that. As a matter of fact, those rich white women used to get nude and call the black chauffeurs in the house to hand her a towel or give her something, and daring to look at her and daring not to. That's right. If he didn't look at her, it was an insult to her, and if he did look at her, God help him.
I've had people in the South tell me that there was a lot more of that kind of thing going on in the big house than anybody has ever written about, with the white women enticing the black men, and that there were babies that were born which were handed over to black women to raise.
That's right, they were paid.
Yeah.
And black men were paid too to marry beautiful black girls so that the rich white man could have her. And I know black men that walked around with diamond stick pins and diamonds in their teeth, that gold filled teeth with diamonds setting in it, and diamonds on their walking cane, and diamonds in their bulldogs' collars, just paid for by millionaire white men, multimillionaires. Well, never no poor. Now they had sporting houses where only rich white men went with black women in them. So beautiful black women. And so all of this talk about us being beneath him is a lie. Is a lie. He'd sneak out every chance he could get to come to black women, you see.
That's what Malcolm X said in that autobiography.
While he persecuted the black man.
So when Marcus, the message that Marcus Garvey brought was very much about the whole history of Africa.
From Cape to Cairo. And that really impressed me a great deal. I came up north and went to the launching of the Black Star Line. Garvey bought ships, and oh my God, just to think that we too could have ships on the ocean. And of course, we had no idea of the intrigue that was in his organization. You can just imagine. Here's somebody speaking about the freedom of Africa. And you can imagine who owned Africa. German, the Dutch, the French, the English, the Italians, everybody under the sun had a piece of Africa, and you can imagine their agents would be sent into Garvey's organization, and that's what really happened. But I want to tell you that even to this day, we have Garvey chapters all over the country, still meeting. Even until this day, they have not killed the spirit of Garvey. Then they had all of their trained colored people. You know, there was a time we were colored. And then, of course, we became Negroes. First we were coon, darkest, colored, niggers, Negroes. Then we became crime in the street, and now we the other. Call us the other.
The other.
The other. That's what they calling us now, the other. You see.
Did you know? Was there much talk of Africa in your community before Garvey came?
No, only what the slaves, like my grandmother, had told us. That was handed down from their grandmother. You see.
So Garvey just opened up a whole new vista.
He opened up a whole world for us. Taught us about Africa. It was music to our ears. And then we understood the whole business of slavery and what had happened to us. You know. So of course I wanted the freedom of Africa, and from then on, that's been my total concern. Freedom of Africa.
Let's see. You were in business for yourself in
Oh, yeah.
the South.
Oh, yeah.